What's up, everybody? I'm Chris Cavanna, and this is The Slant. Today I'll be bringing you a special video on what you need to know about the NFL Draft. More specifically, the 2022 NFL Draft, and just kind of some information you need to know. Mostly I'll just be talking about the players that are expected to get drafted, mainly in the first round, and kind of some of the stories behind them in terms of where they might go, or who may be taken ahead of who, just kind of things like that, just stuff for beginners to know that people may not know, because I know plenty of people who will be watching the draft and may not know much of anything about it. So I figured I'd kind of fill in the gaps as best I can. Now, mind you, I don't expect this to be a very long video. This is kind of just a short summary of who I think will be important in this draft and just kind of general information about it. I don't expect anything over the top or lengthy. So just sit back, enjoy, and learn a tiny little bit about some of the players. Let's start with the quarterbacks in this draft. Now, the two main quarterbacks you need to know of are Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh and Malik Willis from Liberty University. The reason these two are even being mentioned is because of the lack of quarterback talent in this year's draft, and so these guys who normally would be probably second or third rounders are being bumped up to first rounders because the NFL media has nothing better to do than to hype up average quarterbacks who will probably end up kind of like Mitch Trubisky. And you can say what you want about Mitch Trubisky, I don't think he's that good. I think he was overrated from the beginning. Now, between the two of them, Kenny Pickett is the quarterback I would take if I had to choose, just because he seems like a more pro-ready quarterback, according to what I've been reading and seeing. He was in a more pro-ready system and played teams like Clemson and other teams in the ACC conference, so at least he has more what would be seemingly NFL experience than Malik Willis, who went to the small school of Liberty. There's been a lot of rumblings that the Panthers might be picking him at 6, and then there's been rumors that he may not go to the middle of the first round. Who knows? Honestly, I could believe anything at this point. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, then there's Malik Willis. The argument to be made for Willis is that he has more upside, more athleticism, he's quicker. Basically, he has overall just a quote-unquote higher ceiling, if you will. The other quarterbacks who most likely won't make the first round, they may possibly at the end of the first round, but I really kind of doubt it, are Carson Strong, Matt Corral, Desmond Ridder, guys like that. It seems like they're probably not going to make the first round because they seem like second or third round talent in a draft that is full of second or third round talent in the quarterback department. So pretty much in any other draft, they'd probably be third or fourth round quarterbacks. I mean, maybe not, maybe that's a little harsh, but this lack of QB talent in this draft is certainly helping them. Their draft stock is much higher than it would be in any other draft. Anyway, I could go on, but there's plenty more to talk about in this video, and there are more quarterbacks than just those that I've mentioned, and trust me, you'll probably never hear of them. But hey, you never know. There could always be a Tom Brady out there somewhere. I doubt it, but you never know. Anyway, moving on to what is probably the most interesting of all the positions in the draft this year. Defensive end, pass rush, edge, whatever you want to call it. Pretty much the guys who go after the quarterback on the edge. Now, the main guy you should know about is the top prospect, possibly in the entire draft. That's what it seems like. He's like the number one player in the whole thing, is Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan. He seems to be a real dominant force, and it looks like he will go, if not number one, number 2. If he slips to the second pick, I'll be surprised, but there seems to be a lot of talk of Georgia's Trayvon Walker going number 1 to Jacksonville, because the GM of Jacksonville seems to like guys who are more athletic, and Jacksonville seems to want to maybe take a chance on him. I know it's just rumor, but who knows? 24 hours from now, that could be fact. They could have taken him, and everyone who doubted it would look, well, I wouldn't say foolish, just because it's kind of a reach to think about. But I guess the draft is always about people getting taken who you wouldn't expect to get taken in the spot that they get taken in. I feel like I said the word taken a lot. Whatever. Now, there are other pass rush prospects out there, such as Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon, and George Karlaftis from Purdue. Now, these guys are obviously great pass rushers as well, but I don't think any of them really touch what Aiden Hutchinson has done. The closest I'd say is Kayvon Thibodeau. It confuses me why Trayvon Walker is so high on the Jacksonville board. Well, then again, it is just rumor, so who knows. Not to say he's not a great player, and he was a very good player on a very, very, very good college defense at Georgia, but it seems like maybe he was a product more of his team than his own talents. But, I mean, I could be wrong, and for whoever drafts him's sake, I hope I am wrong. Now on to the next big topic in this year's draft, the offensive lineman. The big names you need to know are Ike Ekwonu out of North Carolina State, Evan Neal out of Alabama, and Charles Cross out of Mississippi State. All three of these guys seem to be on about the same level of talent. Personally, I would say that Ike Ekwonu is the best of the three because he seems to be a more versatile player. He can play at guard or tackle and be at least a Pro Bowl player, it seems like. Of course, that's just projection. I'm not a scout. I'm not affiliated with any teams or anything like that. This is just how I see it and what I've been reading from the experts who have done all their research. Either way, all of these guys, you can't really go wrong with them. And some other offensive linemen that seem to be trending upwards are Tyler Lindenbaum out of Iowa. He's a center. And then there's also Bernard Raymond, a tackle from Central Michigan, Kenyon Green from Texas A&M, and Zion Johnson from Boston College. These two play at the guard position, as well as Trevor Penning, tackle from Northern Iowa. Now I could go on, but for the sake of this video, these are kind of the guys you really need to know. These are all going to be guys that seem like quality starters in the NFL. Beyond the first round, there's going to be other guys who not many people have heard of, but they'll end up being great talents because that's what the draft is, finding diamonds in the rough. And now for the next hot commodity position, the wide receiver. Now the main guys you need to know are Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State, Jameson Williams out of Alabama, Drake London out of USC, Traylon Burks out of Arkansas, Chris Olave out of Ohio State, Jahan Dotson out of Penn State, and George Pickens out of Georgia. I'd say the most important things you need to know are that Jameson Williams out of Alabama was going to be probably a top 5 pick this year before he tore his ACL in the national championship game against Georgia. Apparently he's making good on his recovery with the ACL injury, and he may still get taken very early. He's still a top 3 prospect according to most people's draft boards, or at least all the experts say that anyway. But Garrett Wilson seems to be the number 1 guy. Whether or not he's picked first, we'll see, but it should be interesting. As for the others, I'd say Drake London out of USC is the only other one kind of in the same class as Wilson and Williams. Kind of like the offensive lineman, how there's 3 guys who are really at the top, they kind of stand out above the rest, and then there's a bunch of other guys below them that are pretty talented, but not really at the same level. Now for the defensive tackles, or I guess defensive line, depending on what kind of scheme the teams play. The guys pretty much on the inside of the defensive line would be Jordan Davis out of Georgia, Boya Mafe out of Minnesota, and Devontae Wyatt out of Georgia. Honestly, other than those names, there's really not too many that stick out too much, at least not for the first round, but hey, you never know. There are surprise picks every year in the first round, mostly guys you never heard of, and you just say, what? And then they end up being all pros, and that's why the general managers get paid, and we're just, fans who watch it. Now moving on to the prospects in the middle of the defense, the 2 inside linebackers that you'll probably hear are Nakobe Dean out of Georgia and Devin Lloyd out of Utah. Now I've heard some rumblings about Leo Chenal out of Wisconsin, but it sounds to me like they're all 2nd or 3rd round rumblings, really. Lloyd and Dean are the 2 standout guys that would not surprise me if they went in the first round. And now onto the back half of the defense, we have some cornerbacks. Ahmad Gardner out of Cincinnati, who seems to be a top 5 talent in this year's draft. Derek Stingley out of LSU, another promising candidate. And then there's also Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson, Trent McDuffie out of Washington, and Kaiir Elam out of Florida. The rest of these guys all seem like probably fringe 2nd rounders. Gardner, Stingley, Booth, McDuffie, Elam. I could see all of these guys going in the first round. But in short, the biggest names to keep an eye out on are Ahmad Gardner and Derek Stingley Jr. And the last position I'll truly be covering in this video is the safety position, and the prospects coming out that stand out the most are Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame, Daxton Hill out of Michigan, Lewis Seen out of Georgia, and Jalen Petrie out of Baylor. Now, the only one I know for sure will be going in the first round is Kyle Hamilton. I'll be floored if he does not go in the first round. The dude is a baller. Not to discredit the other guys I mentioned, and obviously all the other safeties in this draft, but this guy stands out above the rest. I would certainly expect his name to be called on night one. Now, when it comes to running back, tight end, all the other positions that I didn't mention, there's really no one that noteworthy. I mean, there might be a guy who slips in towards the end of the first round or something like that, but really, I wouldn't look too much into those. There's not really much to say about them. I mean, if they go in the first round, great. If not, okay. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. So for those of you who actually played this all the way through and listened to me ramble on for 10 minutes, I appreciate you. And sorry it's a little monotone. I've been working a lot lately, so it's been kind of draining. So maybe my inflection isn't as dynamic as it normally would be, but I'm kind of getting back into making videos, so it's a bit of a process, so I appreciate you listening anyway and hearing me out as I get through these growing pains, I guess. Anyway, I hope this helped anybody who's going to be watching the draft kind of learn a little bit about the players, just about who should be going in the first round, who wouldn't be, just so that way when other people who are watching it may be going, oh my god, holy crap, you'll have an idea of what's going on instead of just being like, okay, what's the big deal? I don't get it. But anyway, thank you for listening. Go enjoy the NFL draft, and I'll see you guys next time.